Chelsea Clinton over the weekend. You know, she's a big abortion proponent. She's been talking about how great Roe v. Wade is, how we should have legal abortion. And why? Because she's a Democrat. She's a political animal. I mean, she was created in an environment of politics. She's been in politics her whole life. Then she went a little too far. Here's what she said about Roe v. Wade.
As a deeply religious person, it's also unchristian.
So she's saying, she goes on and on in the interview, but that's all you need to hear. She says, as a deeply religious person, it would be unchristian to outlaw abortion. There are plenty of people who are Christian who support abortion in spite of their faith. I think almost half of American Catholics support abortion, even though their faith clearly says that abortion is gravely immoral and intrinsically evil. Okay, some people do that. Some people have a complicated view of theology. They're on a spiritual journey. They haven't gotten there yet. That's fine. I went from atheist to Catholic to a Christian revert in over a number of years, and it doesn't happen all at once. Okay, that's fine. But to pretend that your support for killing little babies comes from your Christian faith is outrageous. That is awful, and that is really, really a terrible thing. She should be called out for it. Matt Walsh called her out for it, and I think she responded to him. That is a step too far. It's one thing to. We see this a lot in the breakdown of the church. We see this a lot in the breakdown of American politics. It's one thing to say, I understand that there is a moral order, and I'm violating it. And I'm doing it because I'm a weak and broken person, but I still acknowledge that there's a moral order. That's one thing. It's a totally different thing to say, there's no moral order. Good is bad, up is down, war is peace, murder is great. That is much more pernicious. Even if you're doing the exact same thing, to deny the very essence of an order, of a political or of a moral order, that is much, much worse. It's much more dangerous. That's the territory that the left is moving into. When her mother ran for president in 2008, she said abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Now, Chelsea Clinton is saying abortion is a great thing and it's very Christian. That is a huge shift. And this is where heresy creeps in religion, and this is where our constitutional order is seriously undermined and broken down. When people undercut the very doctrines, the very philosophical premises and institutions that undergird our country.
So it's unchristian to stop people from having abortions. Now, look, no matter where you stand on this issue, and it is a deeply hurtful issue for a lot of people and a wrenching one, to suggest that people who defend life are somehow acting in an unchristian manner. The men and women who, through their religion, believe their religion compels them to protect innocent life. These are remarks that I think people are going to be outraged.
And she says, well, it's going to unleash hate. No, it not unleashes hate, it's disbelief. Like, we disagree about this issue, but it's almost, you're questioning the Christian beliefs of those who believe it's right to protect the most vulnerable.
Right. And you'll remember a month ago she said abortion actually contributed $3.5 trillion to the economy because all the mothers then went into the workplace because they were free of having children.
How about those millions of babies who weren't born?
Right, who weren't contributing to the economy.
Well, welcome to Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short. Today I'd like to talk about a subject that's in the news. It seems like it's in the news every day, and we just can't seem to be getting away from it, and that is the subject of abortion. And really, that's what's happening in respect to the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh and the Democrats versus Republicans. It's all about abortion. It's all about the Republicans possibly reversing Roe v. Wade with a nominee who is opposed to abortion. And it's about the Democrats making sure that a Supreme Court justice is not placed on the court that might overturn Roe v. Wade. It's all about abortion. And this is what has happened since Robert Bork in the 80s. And this is what has happened to every Supreme Court justice nominee. In the Judiciary Committee, there has been a battle between whether that person is pro-life or pro-abortion. And so it comes down to what the Democrats can do to somehow derail this man's appointment to the Supreme Court, because they are fighting for the right to kill babies. They're fighting for the right to kill babies with abortion. Now, why is this so important to people on the left? Why is this so important to the Democrats? Why is this so important to people in the modern era, the secular modern people in the Western nations? Why is it so important to kill babies? Why is that such an important right? Why do people say we must kill babies? We have to kill babies. Why is that such a critical thing? Well, it has to deal with freedom. It has to deal with their understanding of freedom. There is a definition of freedom that says, unless I am able to do whatever I want to do, anytime I want to, then I am not free. If I have to follow any of God's laws, if I have to follow any kind of certain pattern that is set on high, external to me, then I am not truly free. Only if I can be totally free to do whatever I want to do, only if my moral code is written by me, only if our societal codes are written by us, then we are not free. If we have some external law written by God on the Ten Commandments, if we have some kind of external morality given to us from the Bible, if we are given some external morality that says this is right and this is wrong, that we did not come up with, that we did not create on our own, then that is an imposition on our freedom. That's what the left thinks is the situation here. And so when they look at a Brett Kavanaugh or they look at a Neil Gorsuch or any of the other appointees to the Supreme Court, they look at these people and saying, are they going to uphold the right to kill babies? Or in other words, are they going to uphold the right of people to make up their own morality, to create their own rules, to not have any imposition from the outside? Or are they going to take that away? Are they going to rob us of our freedom? Because they have defined freedom in such a radical and such a foolish way that they are willing to kill babies, destroy people's character, destroy people's lives in order to push through this radical view of freedom. Well, we've seen another person who has even gone further than I have seen someone go on the issue of abortion in a long, long time. Now, we've seen a lot of radical, far out, far left statements about abortion and how it needs to be preserved as a right, a basic human right. We've heard the rhetoric of the left about somehow it's a women's health issue. And it's a very important women's health issue to be able to kill their baby whenever they want to. We've heard that. We've heard reproductive rights and reproductive justice. We've heard all of this kind of rhetoric. But I have never heard in all of my years since I've been following this whole issue, and I started following it back in the days, college days, back in the late 80s when I was attending Wheaton College, and there was a group on campus from the Illinois Right to Life, Illinois Citizens for Life, and I began to attend some of the meetings and actually never thought about this issue before, never even gave it much attention as a teenager or even as a early young man in my 20s. But when I got to Wheaton College, I began to look into this and I began to realize this is killing babies. This is murder. This is slaughtering innocent lives. This is terrible. This is awful. I guess in the words of the modern parlance, I got woked up to the reality of the slaughter of the innocents with abortion. And ever since that time, I've been trying to follow this issue. I've attended the March for Life in Washington, D.C. I've marched along with the people down the streets of the capital city of our nation. I protested abortion hospitals. I've done all kinds of different activities. I've written to senators, I've written to congressmen, House of Representatives, I voted for presidents who are pro-life. I have voted for them because they had the power to appoint Supreme Court justices with the possibility of overturning Roe v. Wade. But I have never ever heard anyone talk about abortion as something that a Christian has to support, until I ran into a video clip of none other than the daughter of Bill and Hillary Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, made the outrageous, despicable statement that to oppose abortion is unchristian. Yes, that's right. She said it in an interview, and she even realized that it was over the top and really out there and far out and really radical. And so she had to qualify her statement. But she said that, to be frank, she said it's unchristian to oppose abortion rights. It's unchristian to try to stop a woman from killing her baby. It's unchristian for society to put limits on the power of life and death of individual citizens. It's unchristian for people to participate in the pro-life movement and try to restrict abortion. And this is totally outrageous. If you're going to bring in Christianity at all, then you have to realize that Christianity promotes life at all stages of life. And the reason Christianity promotes life at all stages of life is that we are made, the Bible teaches, in the image of God. You go back to the book of Genesis, you go back to the early chapters, 1, 2, 3, and you realize that God made men and women in His image. And in the image of God, He made them male and female, His image and likeness. So we, among all the different creatures on earth, we are made in the image of God. And we have semblance or resemblance to the Almighty Himself. That doesn't mean that we are gods. We don't want to teach something like the cult group the Mormons teach. They teach that God was once a man and He worked His way up to the level of God, and that we too here on earth are capable of working our way up to become a God ourselves. Now that's false cultic theology. And we want to teach strongly against that. That is totally wrong. That is totally false. There's nothing correct in that view. But we are made in the image of God. And what that means is that we have something special in us that makes us special over all creation. An animal, even though a beloved pet, a dog or a cat, we may have them in our home. We may think of them as family. But from the perspective of God, they are not made in the image of God. We can still love them, we can still care for them, enjoy their company, but we are made in the image of God. The cat, the dog, the other pets that we may own, they do not reflect the image of God. They don't have a moral character within them. They don't have a spiritual nature within them. They are not offered salvation through the cross of Christ. They are not given the opportunity to either reject or accept the salvation message of the gospel. And so they are not held morally accountable like we are, because we're made in the image of God. We're expected to act morally because we are like God in some sense. And so we have a higher standard to live up to than the other creatures on earth. So the Bible teaches us, the Christian faith teaches us, that all human beings are important. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter how rich they are. It doesn't matter what the status of their life is. It doesn't matter if they're from the lower class or the upper class. It doesn't matter if they have a high position in society or if they are a street sweeper or a garbage man or whatever the lowest position in society might be. You're all made in the image of God because of God's created order. And so that means that the baby in the womb is created in the image of God just as surely as anyone on this whole earth. The President of the United States or the President of any country or the leader of any country is not any more important as far as in God's eyes than the baby in the womb. They're certainly not more valuable than a baby in the womb because all of us are created in the image of God. And that gives dignity and purpose and worth to every single human being at every stage of their life. Maybe they're at the older age of their life. Maybe they're in their senior years of their life. They're no more valuable or less valuable than a teenager is. A teenager is no more less valuable or more valuable than a baby in the womb. And then you go into the womb and you say a baby at 5 months is no less valuable than a baby at 9 months, just about ready to be born. So there's always this stage of life, whatever person is in. They could be in their teenage years, they could be in their young adult years, they could be in their middle age, they could be in their senior years, they could be in their infant years, they could be in their unborn, in the womb stage of their life. They're all the same value because they're made in the image of God. That's the Christian teaching on abortion, and that's the Christian teaching, and it has always been that is the Christian teaching. If you go back and you look at, for example, there's a book put out by InterVarsity Press by Michael Gorman, Abortion in the Early Church. It documents how in even the early centuries of Christianity, when this issue was talked about and discussed, there was always prohibition against abortion. And the pagan Greeks and Romans would sometimes, if they didn't like their child, they'd just leave the baby outdoors. It's called exposure, and expose it to the animals and the weather and the conditions out there, and they would just let it die. If they didn't want a child, take it out in the field and let the baby die. Just place it out there in the middle of the field and let nature basically destroy it and kill it. Now that's immoral, that's cruel. And the Christians opposed that. They also opposed abortion in all different forms. Abortion was known back then. Now we don't have what we have today. We don't have the modern medical procedures of abortion. We don't have the operating rooms and the abortion clinics where there are instruments of death that are designed specifically for the purpose, of tearing that baby out of the womb, dismembering that baby. Now, in the case of the saline injections, we didn't see back in the early ancient times the ability to take a syringe and put it into the woman's womb, fill it with saline solution or a salt solution, and basically poison the baby in the womb and have it extracted later as stillborn. That happens today, but that wasn't available back then. But they did have things that they would give to women that would induce an abortion and basically kill the baby that way. They also had other means of producing abortions that were very crude and very barbaric to the woman even, not even to mention the baby in the womb. But today we have methods that are just as barbaric, only they kind of sanitize it, and they appear to be more humane, but it's not any less barbaric to the woman and the baby in the womb, because the baby is still dead and the baby is still slaughtered the same as in the ancient world. Only maybe today the woman is not presented with as many possibilities of infection and bleeding and all these other medical procedures that happened in the old times, but they didn't have solutions to them. And so more women died from abortion in the ancient times. They didn't have the modern emergency rooms and so forth. But the practice was known in the ancient world, and Christians opposed it. And that's what this book by Michael Gorman, Abortion in the Early Church, talks about. So if you haven't read that and you have interest in that, you can pick that book up. It's at InterVarsity Press, Michael Gorman, Abortion and the Early Church. And it documents this. So Christianity has opposed abortion from the very beginning up until even modern times. We oppose abortion. Now, this is why what Chelsea Clinton's statement is so ridiculous and so foolish and actually evil, because she is actually taking something that Christianity has always opposed and that the Bible opposes, and she's saying, no, to be a good Christian, you actually have to promote abortion. That's what being a good Christian is all about. You have to be willing to fight for abortion rights. You have to be willing to fight for a woman's right to kill her offspring. You have to be willing to put up with and tolerate and promote the murder, the slaughter, the killing of the innocent children in the womb. And that's Christian, according to Hillary Clinton. And so you see this absurd proposition that in order to be a good Christian, you have to be willing to kill babies in the womb, which is totally 180 degrees opposite of what Christianity has always taught. Now, we know from history that Christians have always opposed abortion. And the main reason they have opposed abortion, not only has it been the tradition of Christianity to oppose abortion, but it has been the reason why Christians have opposed abortion. The biggest reason is because the scriptures, the Holy Bible, opposes abortion. And then all you have to do is just look at a few verses that talk about this subject, not abortion, but killing and murder and taking of innocent life. You have to look at those passages and you'll realize, hey, the Bible teaches that abortion is wrong. For example, if you look in a basic summary of moral code called the Ten Commandments, you go to Exodus, and you'll find that one of the commandments is, thou shalt not murder. Now, the word there is murder. It's not a general word for killing. It doesn't mean that all killing is wrong. It doesn't mean that if someone attacks you or your family, you can't defend yourself, and in the process, the person dies. That's not wrong. That's self-defense. That's a justified killing. It also doesn't mean that you can't defend yourself in a time of war. God sent the Jews into battle to kill the enemy. And if he did that, it must not be wrong to kill the enemy. It must not be wrong to defend yourself and to defend your family and defend your country. So it can't be just meaning that thou shalt not kill, meaning you shall not kill anything, anyone, at any time, for any reason. No. I mean, there are groups within Christendom, for example, like the Amish, that would try to argue that indeed no form of killing in any sense is permitted. Well, that's not right. That's false. Yes, there is justified killing. There is justified killing in the sense of self-defense, defending your nation, your country, a just war, and so on and so forth. The word there is talking about murder, and the word is talking about taking a person's life without just cause. And if you look at the baby in the womb, the innocent child in the womb, that is the most defenseless, that is the most innocent of all human beings. And there is no justification for taking the life of that innocent human being. The baby didn't do anything. Whatever happened to produce that pregnancy, it was not the baby's fault. The baby had nothing, no sin, no wrong, committed no crime, and that baby does not deserve to die. And so Christians have always taught that it is wrong to kill an innocent child, whether in the womb or outside of the womb, because of the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not murder. Now, if you look in the New Testament, you will also find many different teachings that support the same idea, that we're made in the image of God, everyone is special in the eyes of God, and that God has concern about every person, not just adults, not just teenagers, not just young people, not just children, but also the babies and also babies in the womb. And so to say that it's unchristian to be pro-life, or to say it's unchristian to not fight for abortion rights, is an inversion of the truth. It's an actual inversion. And it also borders on satanic. It also borders on wicked. And the reason it borders on wicked is because it's inverting a truth. The truth is that all people are made in the image of God, including the unborn, and they all deserve protection, and that we need to fight for the right of the unborn. That's the biblical truth. Now, to say that that is not right, and that the opposite is correct, that we don't need to fight for all human life, and that the baby in the womb is not made in the image of God, and that the baby in the womb is not worthy of preserving life, that is wicked. That is satanic. You know, if you know anything about the so-called Church of Satan, you know that one of the practices in the Church of Satan is that they will invert everything. They will turn the crosses upside down. They will try to say the Lord's Prayer backwards. Everything is inverted. Why? Because that's rebellion. They're into rebellion. They're into rebelling against the Lord God Almighty. And so everything they do and everything they say is an attempt to reverse God's will. And that's part of their plan. They want to reverse God's will. They want to do things opposite. He says to do it this way. They want to do it that way. God says up. They say down. They want to flip everything around. They want to invert everything. Well, that's what Chelsea Clinton is doing, and that's why it's so wicked, because she is taking something that is very clearly a value of the Bible and a value of Christianity, that is protecting life made in the image of God, and she's trying to say, no, it's actually unchristian to preserve human life in the womb. It's actually not Christian to oppose a woman from killing her offspring. It's actually not Christian to seek to overturn Roe v. Wade. In other words, she's saying that it is Christian to fight for a woman's right to an abortion. It is Christian to take the life of that innocent child in the womb for whatever reason the woman might have. It is Christian to give women the power of life and death over their offspring. It is Christian. In other words, she's saying to return back to ancient paganism of the Greek and Romans. Again, they used to take their children. If they didn't want a child, they'd leave it out in the middle of the field, leave it exposed to the wild beasts and the elements. And that's the way the pagans were. Well, Chelsea Clinton is trying to take people back to the old ancient pagan ways and saying, see, that's the way that we're supposed to act as Christians. We're supposed to act as pagans did. We're supposed to act as the barbarians did. Now, to be fair to the barbarians, there were plenty of barbarian tribes in the ancient world that didn't even do what Chelsea Clinton is trying to do, which is basically advocate for killing babies. And we know the Greek and the Romans did practice these kinds of things, but of course that's what happened before the Christian faith took off in the Roman Empire. After the Christian faith was established, then these practices ended, and rightly so. But now people like Chelsea Clinton are trying to bring us back to the paganism. And so we have to say no. We have to stand up and say this is not Christianity. We cannot allow these lies and falsehood and distortions of our faith to go unrefuted. So that's why I wanted to make this video today and just teach, hey, we cannot allow those kind of irresponsible statements. No, abortion is not Christian. No, it is not the duty of Christians to promote abortion. It is the duty of Christians to oppose abortion, and that's what we need to do, and that's what we need to continue to do. Well, I hope that's helped you. We'll see you back next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.